night, everyone. I would like to provide this a brief video to give you some framework to generate a discussion on ethics and CSR with critical thinking, as the same way we have been doing throughout the rest of this strategic management seminar. Well, once again, welcome to this framework that have been working with us throughout this seminar. This is strategic management. It's the last seminar of your MBA, and what the value of this seminar is that it gave you like tools to integrate all the business disciplines that you have been studying throughout the MBA, and also because it gave you critical thinking. And how was this critical thinking? Critical thinking is to help you to be a good manager. So to help you to make your own personal decisions with a set of criteria. What was the criteria of your critical thinking? It was the concept of value creation. What is value creation is something only for companies that they quote in public stock exchanges, and the response is no, it's to everyone. Whether you are government, even churches, whatever, and even if you're not in business, if you are working in your house, or if you are sleeping in your house or playing football or whatever. So the concept of value creation basically is that is so universal, because wherever you are in your life, you have to use resources, as this framework shows, and you can develop resources that can be good resources or destructive resources, resources that help you to do things better, or resources that become like an anchor. And with these resources, you can do things well and create market power. In other words, you are using the resources so well that everyone, all the stakeholders around you are happy about that, and they respond in a positive way. And second, with those resources, you can innovate and grow. So you see that this is very universal. You do it practically 24 hours a day. The neat thing about it is that we use this criteria to determine whether your actions or your strategies in your organizations are the right ones. And it was interesting because it helped us to integrate absolutely every single business disciplines, as you see in the right. So human resources, strategic planning, organizations, finance, operations, all the different strategic management models, they can all fall into this very simple framework of value creation. The question is a value creation good or bad? Because remember that we're not talking only about value creation, it's about value maximization, means we are doing our best. And the response is, in many things it is good. For example, the concept of market power leads you to the remember that in the EVA equation we had the concept of opportunity cost. So it was my profitability versus or minus the profitability of an alternative project. This leads to this opportunity cost, and this is good. It means we are always trying to do things better. So you are always trying to use your resources in a better way. So this is good, and this is good. It helps you to be more efficient, to have a better society. You have better health, better education, better technology, better cars, better highways, transportation, everything. So in this regard, everything that you do is going to be better and better and better. So this concept of market power or whatever, not market power, of this positive EA means that you are using your talents in the best possible ways, even biblical for the Christians. The second concept of innovation is good. Better health, better quality of life, education, ecology. So you are always innovating, finding better ways to do things in a more productive way. The concept of resources is good. I mean, it helps you to create the good resources that are better for everyone. And overall, I mean, this concept of value creation leads to the connection with the markets, market efficiencies. So you are linking your needs with the people that have resources, like Adam Smith. So it's the backbone of the utilitarian ethics, that we are trying to maximize pleasure, minimize pain. So you see that all in all, this is a good thing. However, this value maximization also has a very dark side. if you look at the first block at the right, the market power, you see that EVA can lead to some sort of social Darwinism. It means if you look at this chart, you will see that 50% of the companies are at the right and 50% of the companies are at the left of this chart. And the companies that are at the left that destroy economic value, they can disappear. So this is kind of rough, no? Because what happens if we are working in a company that is at the left? So we are always in a sort of race that competition kills the companies that are less efficient. You see, okay, it's nice in the sense that the whole world becomes more efficient, but it's not nice in the sense that 50% of the population is suffering. So this social Darwinism is very controversial. I mean, it's nice if you are at the right, so if you enjoy the social Darwinism, but sometimes you are at the left, and it's not your fault. Probably you are sick. Probably you were born with some sort of disability, or maybe your family was not didn't have the resources to educate you. So it means that it's hard to accept that you are going to suffer all the rest of your life because you didn't have the right resources. It's very controversial. Also because of the mechanisms to obtain market power, dumping, bribery, alliances that are kind of dishonest alliances, abusive. Consumers, there is a lot of negative sides on the consumer side. In order to monopolize or manage your consumers, you do unfair advertising, or you lie through advertising. You generate addictions on your customers just to sell them more. You are not care about safety issues, etc. Abuses of market power. This is the creation of monopolies, and monopolies abuse of their market power, charging abusive prices. So sometimes they don't deliver a product because you cannot afford it. So you have millions of people dying in Africa because they have AIDS, and pharmaceutical companies don't sell because they want to make money. So it's very controversial, extremely controversial. On the innovation side, also there is a lot of issues. I will mention only one that we talk about throughout the weeks. Remember that 30 years ago we had $50 trillion were the size of the financial global funds, and $50 trillion per year was the global GDP. So practically 50-50. One is per years and the other is not per years, but it's about the same amount of money, if you want. Today the situation is very different. You have $500 trillion in global funds, 500 versus $50 trillion in GDP. These global funds involve also the derivatives, etc. So you see, it's a very complex world in which these global funds can really produce catastrophic situations in the real economy, abusing, buying futures in oil. So the oil goes from $30 per barrel to 150. So you have to use your car every day and you have to pay. So it is like financial world is invading your real world as a worker. So and you have to pay the consequences everywhere. The houses become more expensive. The currencies become more expensive. You want to buy commodities like wheat or corn, and becomes more expensive because of financial speculation. So you see that this is a real monstrosity, a real cancer of modernity. In the terms of resources, you see all the abuses of human resources or abuses of the environment. This is very serious, and both are very serious. In the case of the environment, how many more decades we have of natural resources until they become extinguished for the greed of the companies is something that is absolutely unacceptable. And all the things that are at the bottom that the economics analyzes, like market failures, externalities, common whatever. I'm not going to get into that because this is not something that we discuss in this seminar. So we get to the conclusion that our strategic decisions that we studied in this seminar, this need to maximize value, is controversial, and it is curious and even intriguing, if you want, that I would dare to say 100% of the strategic management literature, you don't have any framework to analyze these situations. So corporate social responsibility and business ethics is practically absent from all the strategic management literature. If you want to try to clarify your ideas, you start to study by yourself. And okay, you study what you have at the left, ethics, business ethics. You study all the theories, the ontology, norms, ethics of rights, of justice, values, ethics of value, blah blah. When you finish, you have such a mess in your head because all these theories are completely controversial. So one says you have to go in this direction, and the other theory you have to go in the opposite direction. So when you finish, you say, well, it seems that with all these theories, all that we got is you can justify whatever decision using all these frameworks, but they don't tell you exactly what you are supposed to do. They don't tell you if making that marketing decision or that resources decision or that pricing decision or whatever you are making a fair decision. If you read all the theories, you study all the theories at the right of this slide, corporate social responsibility theories, you are even more lost because there are so many theories, you cannot apply them all. They lead to completely controversial situations. So you say, okay, thank you, business ethics, and thank you, CSR, because I'm now more confused than before. So you finish all this journey, if you want, trying to understand if the strategic management decisions are ethical or not, with a tremendous mess in your head, and the theory doesn't seem to help. And part of the reason why we have this mess is because throughout the last 400 years, all sciences have become so much atomized, so much fragmented, that we all become like specialists in one single field, and we have lost the big picture. And this is the reason number one why we get confused and unable to make ethical reasoning, if you want. So I would try to walk back, if you want, in this journey, in this road, trying to rebuild interdisciplinary disciplines, if you want, or interdisciplinary thinking. Sorry, so you can walk out of this atomization. So if you are a financial manager, you have no clue about politics or ethics or corporate social responsibility because this is your field and this is all you know. Okay, let's do the opposite. Let's reintegrate knowledge. Let's go through different disciplines and let's analyze. Let's see if now it helps to make ethical decisions. And I will rely on the first line that you see here. That is, if you want ethics, I'm sorry, philosophy like epistemology, moral philosophy, economic philosophy, political philosophy, to try to see if we can do the same exercise that we did in business, but now of knowledge integration, and we are going to do the same exercise in the rest of the disciplines, going beyond business. And you realize that there's like three main buildings, if you want, of knowledge that we have. At the very right, the red boxes, they represent most of the thinking that we have here in the West. Not here in the West, mostly the Anglo-Saxon model, if you want, of free economy, utilitarianism, stock value creation. That is basically the ideas that we have been discussing in this seminar. I will explain one by one in more detail in a second, but if you can see here represented most of the thinking that we have here in the US. So empiricism, remember that this empiricism was especially developed in England, and this practical knowledge or the concept that we build knowledge through practice, through well, whatever. It was the foundation of everything that you have in the next blocks. For example, utilitarianism is definitely if you want the practical implication of empirical knowledge. Utilitarianism, remember, is the maximization of pleasure, minimization of pain, and that if you go to the next line, to the economic life, it's the foundation of the supply and demand curves. And this supply and demand became the foundation of the free markets, the classic and neoclassic economics. And also this is linked to all individualism, Machiavelli, Hobbes, Hamilton, that all the concept that you have to okay, this is long. I don't want to enter into so many details. I assume that you are familiar with all these concepts. And finally, all the concept of shareholder value theory. If you look at the left, the blue boxes, they represent mostly the thinking in the continental Europe, all the rationalism, idealism, that they became like the foundation of completely different framework, much more universalist. Like there are universal ideas. It's not that each single individual has a different approach. So, and these universal norms lead to the concept of the ethics of rights, ethics of justice. In terms of economics, is the opposite to the free markets. Is all the economics based on the state, welfare economics, socialism, Marxism. In terms of politics or collectivism, it's like the state is the one that leads all the political decisions. And in terms of corporate social responsibility, all the CSR based on norms, norms, corporate governance, controls, whatever that all the members of the organization, they have to follow norms. It's different, completely different from the shareholder value theory that you have the right that we have been discussing in this seminar. And in the center, you have another framework, and I will try to explain this in detail. But first, I have to give you like a first, if you want, like memory of how these two blocks were developed, and so how the free market concept that you have at the right of this chart, and all the more state or leftist, or if you want. Collectivism ideas that you have at the left. This block that you have at the center is like a completely different approach. And let me try to explain how this is born and why this is so important. All this concept that you have of the right and the left, if you want, the individualism versus collectivism, free markets versus state economy or whatever, was born after René Descartes. Remember in the year 1600 and something, he was kind of tired of all the mess, ideological mess, and all the wars of religion or whatever, and he said something that became like the foundation of all modernism, if you want. He said, like, listen, this is a mess, I have no clue what the people say, this is so confusing that I go to my house, I close the door, I get into my living room or whatever, and if someone wants to convince me of whatever idea, you have to be through ways. Number one is to prove it, to all the scientific methods that existed way before Descartes, but he said, okay, from now on, if you want to really convince me of something, you have to show me using this experimentation, if you want. And this became like the kick-off of this strong empiricism in France, but especially in England. And also he said, and with all this framework, cogito ergo sum, remember that I think, therefore I exist, or whatever translation, that became the foundation of all the rationalism at the left. And all this rationalism, all this idealism was especially developed in Central Europe, like in Germany, and on all these Germanic countries, and also in France. And this became like the kickoff of all these ideas that you have over there, and this is of right, justice, etc., etc. This is very long. There are many other things that are very interesting to discuss, but I'm trying to give you the general framework. What is realism? What is phenomenology? Phenomenology is a reaction against this bipolarism that Descartes generated. Basically, it's like confronting Descartes and telling him, listen, you're wrong. You made the wrong decision, Descartes. You shouldn't have gone to your home. You shouldn't have closed the door of your living room and try to solve everything either by empiricism or scientific method, or by rationalism. There are many other ways. And these other ways are so central because they help you to be more realistic and to help you to be closer to a reality. So, for example, and this is a very neat way to understand what is the difference between this realism and phenomenology with the two others. I stand in front of a group of 30, 40 people and I show an apple and I ask everyone, what do you see? And one says, a poet says, okay, an apple is the symbol of life or whatever. And then an economist says, well, okay, an apple is the center of all the production and the economics, the markets, the supply, the demand, etc., etc. And then whatever a politician says. So consequently, everyone provides a different perception or a different response to what an apple is or a definition of what an apple is. Okay, Descartes would say, you are all crazy, I go to my house, I close the door. I said, no, Descartes, you don't have to go home. You have to understand diversity, understand that people have different ideas, and you have to find ways to communicate and integrate the notions of everyone. And the more ideas you have about an apple, the closer you get to what an apple really is. So it's good to have different ideas, it's good to have diversity. And this is the concept of phenomenology. Phenomenology means that every one of us perceives different phenomenon from things. Some people prefer the economic perception, some people more the poetic, some people more whatever, affection or about different ways to perceive artistic and perceive the reality. And the more perceptions you get, the more phenomena you receive, and the more the people that are in front of this apple communicate to each other and share ideas about what an apple is, the closer you get to the reality. So consequently, this is a tremendous way to integrate the different perceptions. So instead of either you are an empiricist or either you are an idealist, really say, okay, empiricists are right, ideas are right, but we have many other ways to perceive the reality. Dialogue, meditation, reflection, whatever. There are many different ways to perceive the reality. So it's much more integrative, much more friendly, much more let's accept the different realities, let's accept diversity, whatever. So and this is the foundation of this second column, the green column that you have here. I will show you in a second what are the practical implications of this exercise that I studied in the previous slide, that basically provides you critical thinking, very profound critical thinking. But before jumping into it, I want to show you the benefits of this knowledge integration. When you integrate knowledge, especially as I show you in the last framework, the realistic framework, you also integrate the person, and you integrate the person to the community, and you integrate communities, and this is very important. So empiricism tends to isolate people and tends to a profound individualism that doesn't help people to communicate and to understand to each other. So it generates or it triggers a very radical individualism. On the opposite side, the idealism produces exactly the opposite, like the universalism in ideas. This is it, and if you don't follow my ideas, you are wrong. It's very fundamentalistic. And however, this realism that I show you in the middle, it provides a good way so people can integrate to each other, can dialogue. People have more time to understand myself or understand others, and this produces knowledge integration and community integration and personal integration. In the second slide, in the second picture that you have, it produces critical thinking because it helps you to realize that the different frameworks, they are relative, they have strengths and weaknesses. So you stop being radical in one side or the other, like say, okay, I am on the right and people on the left are wrong, or people on the left say the opposite. I am leftist and everyone that is on the right is wrong. It helps to realize that all the different frameworks have strengths and weaknesses, and this is very good because it's very humbling. It's very helps you to be more open-minded, to be more to dialogue with the rest of the people. The column, the next picture I have shows that all the everything that we have studied in this seminar is very much at the lab at the right on the red set of boxes. All the concept of value creation clearly falls under this concept, and this free markets conception. And once you realize that the foundations have pros and cons, you will say that you will absolutely conclude very easily that all business decisions also have pros and cons. Another set of source of critical thinking is that at the very bottom you have all the different corporate social responsibilities decisions. But it is interesting to realize that you cannot make a CSR decision without looking at the big picture, because you cannot say if one company, for example, is unethical because it's not selling drugs in Africa for people that have drugs, because this decision that have AIDS, I'm sorry, because this decision that is much wider, is political, is economic, is ethical. There are many other sides. So you cannot say Glaxo, for example, SmithKline, is unethical because they don't sell drugs or they sell a box for $100, so people are dying. Say, well, Glaxo is part of the picture, but there are many other pieces here, political, economic, all the global dimension, etc. So you need to look at the bigger picture. Finally, this framework introduces you to this concept of realism and phenomenology that is a relatively young discipline, and most of the people, especially here in the US, we are not familiar with it. In Europe, people are much more familiar, but not here in the US. And this is very healing. It helps to maximize happiness. It doesn't happen in the other two frameworks, in the red boxes or the blue boxes. The green box, if you want this realistic, phenomenological approach, it helps you to really be in contact with others. It helps you to accept diversity. It helps you to create a neat, a social fabric, if you want, that integrates individuals and communities. And this very much maximizes happiness. And it gives you critical thinking, because it helps you to realize whether a decision is at the right in these boxes, is more individualistic, is more empirical, is more free markets or whatever, or is at the left, is more state oriented or more Marxist or whatever. And then you can be more critical, say, well, you know, this decision is really controversial. I don't necessarily agree. Helps you to pacify, it helps you to integrate, helps you to be more humanistic. It incorporates its cultures, spiritualities, religion, psychology. There are many things that I will explain you in a minute. So let's get into this discussion that is very interesting and provides a lot of critical thinking. Okay, this is what you have to do in your discussion in this week. If you look at this framework, we are analyzing now the column of the right. Actually, it's the rightist. This is what we traditionally call the right. That is all the more Anglo-Saxon model based on the British empiricism, whatever. Let's analyze one by one. What is the first line that we call knowledge construction? It's basically how you build knowledge. And how you build knowledge, you have like the three ways: empiricism, idealism, or realism. Okay, what is the benefit of the empiricist, the practical knowledge construction? Well, it has many pros. If you look at the second column, the pros, it is the foundation of modern sciences, and these sciences produce prosperity, human development, whatever. So definitely this practical knowledge, this scientific knowledge is very powerful, if you want. But at the same time, it has some cons, and this is the wise dimension of this exercise. This empiricist knowledge construction that is so typical here in the US, we tend to be very practical, very empirical, is that it produces a lot of skepticism, relativism. Each person has a different idea, subjectivism. I have my own ideas, you have your own ideas, or we don't agree, okay, I go in my way, you go on your way. Atomization of knowledge. So I am a specialist in finance and have no clue about anything, medicine, law, whatever. This fragmentation of knowledge produces this consequence, that in the sense that we don't know if our decisions, how they impact on the community, and this is bad. The second line is the ethics, all the more ethics, religion, psychology, culture. It's very long. I should need hours to explain this, but I will give you just two basic ideas. The typical typical empiricist, if you want, ethical approach is utilitarianism. This concept of maximization of pleasure, minimization of pain, and this is very valuable. You may wonder why. Okay, go to the pros, because utilitarianism is consequentialist. It measures what are the consequences of your decisions, normally in economic terms, because this utilitarian concept became the utility curve, became the foundation of the demand curve, and also indirectly impact on the supply curve. So we became used to use this utilitarianism in economic terms. What is the economic consequences? And this is what we did in this seminar. So we analyze what are the financial or economic consequences of our decisions, and this is good. It is good in the sense that it is important to analyze what are the consequences so we become more efficient or more practical or whatever. But it has a negative side. And the negative side is that this utilitarian ethics can be extremely selfish or egotistical, if you want. It leads to relativism, so every decision can be valid. So if I want to kill millions of people and this is good for me, I can do it. I mean, this is I can show that it's beneficial for me. This leads to this social Darwinism that I described before. This the survival of the fittest. Okay, but what happens if you are not the fittest? So what happens if you are not if you didn't get the right resources, your family didn't have financial resources, so you couldn't get a good education? What does it mean? That you are going to starve and you're going to die? I mean, it's not so simple. The people that will die, they will make a revolution. They will become terrorists. They will become criminals. So it's not that simple. You cannot ignore that some people cannot survive. So it weakens the social fabric. It generates poverty, marginality, delinquency. So you see, it's very controversial. Utilitarianism is extremely controversial. It's too myopic. It doesn't look at all these consequences of abandoning people that don't have the right resources and cannot survive. The economic side is also controversial because all the free markets is excellent in the sense that it's the best way to promote wealth creations, and there's absolutely nothing to criticize. So all the concept of wealth creation is good for the entire community. Produces a smart economy, organizes the allocation of resources, as Adam Smith explained very very well, produces economic growth. So all this side is very good, but it has a very dark side. On the cons is that it does not create a fair and stable system. There are many market failures, opportunism, speculation, financial speculation. As I showed you before, is very serious. Abuses of market power, as we saw in this seminar, abuses of resources, of natural resources, human resources, is not community oriented. And this is not a joke, especially when you saw the numbers that you have $500 trillion in financial funds, in global funds, while the real economy is $50 trillion. The economy of the US is $15 trillion, $15 trillion versus global funds of $500 trillion. So you realize that it can be very, very, very destructive and produce disasters like the one of 2008, that so many million people lost their houses and their jobs and whatever. And unemployment in young people in Europe, some countries have 50% unemployment and instability, whatever. So all this economic system has very good things and very bad things. On the political side, same thing. Is the positive side of all this individualistic, if you want, politics. I'm just summarizing because it's a very long discussion. It's the backbone of modern constitutionalism, democracy, preservation of individual and private property, everything that we read with John Locke, etc. Freedom and equality objectives, minimalist comment, etc. All of this is definitely good. But on the negative side, this individualistic politics, if you want, does not necessarily protect the weaker sectors of the society. It can produce Machiavellism, that is very typical individualistic political philosophy that led to the World War I and II depression or whatever. So some sector of the society taking advantage of the other sector, very much like Machiavelli proposed. But the bad news is that Machiavelli said that 400 years ago, 500 years ago, and okay, you can take advantage of someone, once, twice, but not forever. So people will react, and then you will have wars and destruction. So Machiavellism is very, very controversial. And finally, on the last line, on corporate social responsibility, all the shareholder value theory that we have been talking in this seminar is very good, produces higher human development, as we discussed, but it's very bad in the sense of abuses of market power and resources, as we discussed before. So, conclusion, it's very important that we can have this critical thinking. That when we speak about the right or the empiricism or utilitarianism or free markets or stock value creation, everything that is described in this slide, you can be critical. You can see the positive side and the negative side, and don't jump into, okay, this is the best, while what you should do is to have your own criteria and realize about the good things and the bad things of all these ideas. The same critical thinking can be applied, can be developed if you are on the leftist side, on the state intervention side, on the collectivism side, if you want, all this socialism, Marxism, etc., etc. Idealism. Let's go every single line, and I think this is extremely provides a lot of wisdom, a tremendous amount of wisdom. So the knowledge construction of idealism is basically that there are some universal ideas that you cannot question. For example, 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay, there are some universal ideas that you cannot take advantage of the others, that etc. So, and generates like universal ethics and universal morality, if you want. And this is good, and this is something that the recognition that there are some universal ideas, that there are some things that we all agree, that it ends this radical subjectivism that we saw before in the empirical conception, if you want. So, and the acceptance that some universal ideas are central is very much at the backbone of our democracy. So the concept of human rights, that we all absolutely accept, the concept of equality, etc., etc., the ethics of rights, of justice, whatever. What are the cons? And you may wonder, what I'm saying. I mean, idealism has cons, and the response is, oh yes, tremendous cons. Sometimes these universal ideas can be disconnected from the reality and can lead to opportunistic behavior. For example, you have a social security law to help sectors of underprivileged sectors of the economy, and some people can take advantage of it, and some people don't need, for example, the support from the government, and they do it. You have in countries that have an employment paid by the government, that some people decide not to work ever again in their lives, and they prefer to live receiving money from the government for the rest of their life. Opportunistic behavior. I mean, how can you control that if a person can work or cannot work? The government is not good for that. So consequently, this produces this opportunistic behavior. Radicalism. You know, these ideas that for sometimes for political or religious or whatever idea, people have believe that they have the right to kill some people. You have today the Islamic State of many ideas that this idealism can be extremely totalitarian. You say, okay, because I defend this idea, I can kill 6 million people because I'm defending this. So it's extremely dangerous. Idealism is dangerous and can produce very good things and can produce very catastrophic things. And it's the end of dialogue, because this is like this because I say so, and the other person, no, I don't agree. So the dialogue is absolutely cut off. So idealism is very neat and very nice in many things, but can be very, very catastrophic in many others. And then when you go to the second row, to the ethical ideas, this once again you realize that the consequences of the first line, the knowledge construction, explode in the second line, on the ethical side. Okay, on the ethical side, it is very good to accept that there are universal norms, universal morals, for example. Like, for example, if I lie and it's ethical for me to lie, okay, so this should be applied to everyone. So everyone should have the right to lie. And what happens in a society everybody lies? This is the end of the society. You cannot create a society in which every person lies because there is dialogue disappears, interaction disappears, social fabric disappears. The same if I have the right to rob. I can rob, I can steal, I can do whatever I want. Okay, if this applies to me, applies to everyone. So everyone can rob in this society. It doesn't work. You cannot have a society in which everyone works. So nobody will work. This is the end of society. So consequently, you can accept that yes, it is true. Some norms are universal. You cannot lie, you cannot steal, you cannot abuse, etc., etc., etc. So this is the good thing about the ethics, and this generates the ethics of right, the ethics of justice. That is the foundation of everything. You cannot have free markets if you don't have ethics of rights and justice. You cannot have a politics. You cannot have a state if you don't have the ethics of rights and justice. There is absolutely no organized society if you don't have that. But what is the problem? It seems that the ethics of rights and justice are perfect, and the response is no, they are not, because first, they are minimalist. They don't lead to a maximization of happiness. The only thing they do, they produce like a safety network. Like some things cannot be touched. I mean, private property cannot be touched. Personal life cannot be touched. But it doesn't guarantee that people are going to be happy. And this is something that comes from Immanuel Kant, the philosopher. He was a strong moralistic, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to maximize your happiness. This is very, very dangerous. It leads to a voluntary and legalistic ethics, divorced from happiness and from the reality. And this automatically leads to people to disobey the laws and find ways to bypass the laws. So this is extremely controversial. And the example that I told you of in my native country, Argentina, there are like 30% of the population that for the last 15 years have lived out of the unemployment. So they don't work. It's an entire generation of people that for the last, I don't know how many, 12, 13 years, they haven't worked. It's extremely controversial. So these norms, some people can abuse of the laws or whatever. On the economic side, this idealistic idea leads to the institutionalism. So basically, socialism, Marxism. So the state intervenes and the state makes economic decisions and plans and distributes whatever. In some things, this is good if you want, in the sense that promotes some cooperation, all the social security laws of the 30s, the civil rights of the 60s, Obamacare, you may like it or not, but it leads to more, if you want, more equal society, for better or for worse. I'm not going to think, but definitely it provides some safety networks to the weaker sectors of society. If you want, you can think that, okay, it has a cost, but it produces harmony. So if you have these safety networks for the unprivileged sector of society, okay, when you go to the street, people are not going to be waiting for you to kill you to steal your money. So you say, okay, I prefer to pay some money in terms of taxes or whatever, so I can go to the street and nobody kills me, if you want. Just to put like an example. But what is the con? The con is that the state is not good in allocating resources. It's not good in creating wealth. It's not good in creating growth. It's not good in creating knowledge. It overloads taxpayers. So some sector, as I put example in my native country, Argentina, so the rest of the population is affording this 30% that haven't worked for the last 15 years or 14 or whatever. So it overloads, it impoverishes the rest of the society. It promotes opportunistic behavior, counter-discrimination, etc. So you see that it is definitely controversial. The same thing in political terms. The same thing in terms of corporate social responsibility. Is all the CSR is based on norms. The idealistic CSR is based on norms, corporate governance, controls, whatever. This is good in the sense that if you go to the pros, that it leads firms to act ethically. So it basically says this is what you have to do, and you have to follow these laws and these norms. You set clear boundaries. What is the negative side? The negative side is that whenever you put these norms and these controls, they can produce many negative sides, like Sarbanes-Oxley, for example. They become a tremendous burden for companies. They limit tremendously all the business activities. So finally, something like Sarbanes-Oxley that is supposed to be a good way to generate ethics. At the end of the day, it paralyzes companies and produces much more problems that the problems that it's supposed to heal. Okay, so now that we exercise our critical thinking in criticizing the good things of the right and the bad things of the right, the good things of the left and the bad things of the left, and we can develop our own criteria. And you may be everywhere if you want scope between being 100% leftist or 100% rightist, or being 30 or 70% or 50%. So that you can have your own criteria and you can criticize and be independent from any radical response. I would like to explain you this third alternative, this realism. The more realistic you are, the more in contact with the reality, the wiser you are, and the better your decisions will be. And as I explained you this example of the apple, that if you decide to stay in front of all the people that are looking at an apple, and you start sharing ideas, and you can start understanding the different ways people perceive the reality, you have much better chances to be fully realistic and make much wiser decisions. And this is absolutely valid in your professional life. If you stand in front of your peers in your organization, and you talk with your managers and with the different employees, and you have much better chances to make a better decision. So this phenomenology is the foundation of modern organizational theory, organizational behavior. So most of the concepts that you study in organizational behavior are a byproduct of phenomenology. So when you study the individual, the team, all the different ideas about organizations, where all these ideas come from? Phenomenology. So the phenomenology is the backbone of modern organizational behavior. And what is phenomenology? As I explained you before, is the understanding that the reality produces different phenomena. Some are more scientific, some are more philosophical, some are more poetic, some are more artistic, some are more affectionate, or whatever. And people are wired in different ways, so they perceive different phenomena that come from the reality. And the way to really get a good perception of the reality is by different mechanisms. And all the different philosophers that I put in this slide, they provide a different understanding. Husserl, for example, he says that the way to perceive the reality is to be more use more consciousness, more awareness, more spirituality. It means give you time to perceive the reality. Don't run away as Descartes did. Stay there, dialogue, think about it. You need to be in contact with this reality. Von Hildebrand, Stein, they talk about empathy, heart, the human side, the relational side. So when you are in contact with other people, you develop values. Levinas, or the human face, human integration. So the best way to be close to the reality is to be close to others. Others talk you about the reality. Heidegger, the concept of time. It is essential to make a good decision to give you time. So reflection, intuition, take your time. Don't respond today, respond tomorrow. Take 24 hours. Think about it. This is phenomenology. And time produces a better approach to the reality. Gadamer, Merleau-Ponty, communication, words, symbols, perceptions, stay in contact with others, dialogue, read, imagination. Arendt, end of totalitarianism, phenomenology is a pacifier. So if you are connected with others, you dialogue with us, you will not be radical. So we not be a radical leftist or a radical rightist or radical nothing. So being in contact with others is the best way to end all these totalitarian ideas. It's a phenomenon, it's a pacifier, it's an integrator, shows how opposite views should not be so, that you always will find a way to integrate different ideas. This is so important. This is the foundation of your success in life, with your families, with your work. You see how realism is so extraordinary, so enlightening. It helps you to be so wise, if you want. It's very interesting that also it helps to this phenomenological approach. It's very good friend of the different spiritualities and different religions, and helps you to be more humanistic. All the different religions, if you look at Eastern religions and Western religions, Christianity, Judaism, they lead to value the individual and value the community. All the religions lead to exactly the same universal ideas. The concept of love, compassion, wisdom, justice, moderation, integrity, and virtues, they all come from this interaction with the others. This ability to contemplate yourself, contemplate others, and consequently generate like a relationship, like a love, whatever. The same happens in Christianity. The Trinity is a relational God. It's not an individualistic God. It's relational. So consequently, it helps to value the individual and to value the communities. You see how all the religions lead to identical notions as phenomenology, and this is an extraordinary source of discernment. Psychology, it happens the same. Modern psychology is also relational. Bowen systems is one of others, but it's extremely enlightening. The possibility to really get very familiar with this. It insists that psychological health depends on the ability of the individual to be mature and happy, but also on the ability to relate to others. So happiness is like, and mental health depends on how much mature I am and how much I fulfill my life with things that I value, that I love, but also how I relate to others, because others help me to be happy too. So both dimensions are important, the individual and the relational side. So once you have all this understanding of what is realism, you can come to this final slide, and this is the end of this short video. You see how this realism, and this is the foundation of critical thinking, very much integrates empiricism and idealism, the right and the left, with critical thinking. So realizing all the pros and cons of each one. So if you go to knowledge construction, what I have just described in the last 3 slides is how realism builds knowledge based on a much more quiet way, relational way, contemplative, dialogue, perceiving things, integrating knowledge and whatever. And this very much integrates individual, integrates community, maximizes happiness, pacifies, produces a balance, etc. It's a very humanistic view. And this leads to the second road, to the ethics. It's a completely different ethic. It's the ethics of values. Values means that I will value myself, and I value the community, and I value the individuals, and I value the reality, the earth, nature, natural resources. And consequently, when you value something, you will try to do the best for yourself and for others. And this leads to a whole categories that concept of values. I will not go through all of them. You can probably read by yourselves if you want. But the consequence of this is that you create like a system, like an organization in which people get integrated to themselves and to the communities. And this is consequentialist, absolutely consequentialist, but in a positive way. So it's not like utilitarianism that is also consequentialist, but can be very selfish, because I look at the consequences for me, but not for the community. However, this ethics of values is consequentialist in the sense that you will try to do the best for you and the best for the community. And you will realize that you need the community, so you cannot be happy if you don't live in a society. You cannot have a watch, you cannot have a car, you cannot travel overseas. There's nothing you can do if you don't belong to a society. You need someone has to manufacture a watch. You cannot do it by yourself. You cannot study by yourself. I mean, you need to have people that teach you. You cannot have health by yourself. You need to go to a surgeon, to a hospital. If you need to do an MRI, whatever you need. So you need to be part of a community. And the more you value yourself and you value the community, the higher the chance that you can be happier. In economic terms, is understanding all the economics, but also how the economics produces the best for the individual and for the community, not only for the individual. And this produces a new types of economics based on solidarity, based on subsidiarity, and that the state can do some things and the market can do others. But both the states and the markets cannot solve all the problems. Consequently, each single individual needs to try to cooperate to generate whatever is not produced by the markets or not produced by the state. In terms of politics, also the same concept that we are all part of an organization, a civil organization, and we need to produce an organization that is the best for individual and the community. And in terms of CSR, corporate social responsibility, it's a different type of CSR. It's a relational CSR. So the processes that maximizes the happiness of the organization and the happiness of the community. So the community counts, and you need to measure whether the community, what you are doing for the community, is right. It's like we all belong to a social fabric, if you want, and organizations need to make decisions that are good for organizations but good for the community. Okay, so this is it. So the recommendation is that for this discussion this week is that you develop your own critical thinking, that you can be critical of every single decision. So consequently, bring cases as the ones that the platform shows, and criticize those decisions using this critical thinking that I have just given you. Hope you enjoyed, and hope this helps you in your personal lives, because I think all these notions will help you really to be wise, hopefully. Thank you very much.